In a nutshell, that sums up my existence. Prior to learning how to help others, I had to overcome my own trauma and endure a great deal of grief. No one else can cure you but yourself, therefore teach them that you can heal yourself if you're sick. On the other hand, there are instances when the timing is perfect and the person speaking is absolutely perfect. Because we tend to become accustomed to the pain, anything might serve as a trigger to force ourselves to heal, even if it's only a song on the radio. Information and knowledge are two very different things. Nevertheless, as you begin to question and embrace your identity without fear, you will find that the universe begins to provide you with the former. So it's not the same as merely knowing information. Wisdom is gained through experiencing life's ups and downs, and the more difficult things you overcome, the more wisdom you gain. I had already experienced a near-death incident. My hypersensitivity started long before my near-death experience. According to some, I sort of came into this life predisposed to be a mystic. Because of my family's history of mysticism, I believe that I was born with a wealth of ancestral wisdom. Even now, a long time after my near-death experience, I still don't understand what happened or what was reawakened inside of me. So yeah, I came into this world in 1978, right after I had a near-death experience. Because I was a highly bright, athletic, and hyperactive little kid, my mom enrolled me in a wide variety of extracurricular activities. When my near-death experience occurred, I was 9 years old and playing a fairly advanced level of soccer. It was in early September of 1987, right before the start of the school year. We begin in early September right here in New York. The kind of soccer I played was known as travel soccer, and it included a wide variety of formats. There was school soccer for the older kids, and there was also a rec league that everyone in town could join on Sunday mornings. After that, there was travel soccer, which requires parents to pay for their children's participation in a trial process. They scout the town's recreation leagues and choose you to play on the team. They will identify the most talented students and approach them about trying out for this squad. At that point, this team will consist of every top student in your town or county. In 1978, I played soccer with the North Rockland Sting, an amateur team in my region. On this squad were all the top students from my neighborhood. The competition was fierce, and we faced off against cities and villages all around New York. Even in the dead of winter, we continued to tour and play music. It would be indoor soccer. There was a lot of competition. But we kids here, or at least in my town, played a variety of sports all year round, just like kids in New York and the Northeast. Remember when we played soccer and baseball? However, our opponent had a large immigrant population from Ireland who played soccer exclusively throughout the year. It was winter, and these youngsters were still elbowing and kicking the ball in their shorts. They were rough. We hadn't encountered such harsh play from those kids before. But my coach would often put me in charge of dealing with the tougher players on the squad because I was the hardest of the bunch. In the beginning of September 1987, we were competing against a town named Thistle. We were playing on a chilly, rainy Sunday afternoon in September. In the midst of a particularly nasty game, I leaped and stepped in front of the child as he lunged to smash the ball into the goal. In addition to the ball, his foot kicked me in the groin, which cracked my plastic cup, a safety device worn to protect the genital area. My left testicle was ruptured by it. Since the ambulance took its sweet time getting here, my folks loaded me into the car while I lay on the ground. I was narrating to my father on the way to the hospital. I got kicked in the balls. I'll be fine in 20 minutes. I don't want to go to the hospital and take my pants down. Please, I don't want to be embarrassed. I was trying to avoid the shame of everyone staring at me, so I was adamant that I would be fine in 20 minutes. They brought me home, and my dad was sure I would be fine. I dozed off because it was Sunday afternoon. School starts the following Monday. It hurt when I stood up. "Oh, you're fine. Go on the bus." My mother reassured me as I rode the bus, but I still remember how much pain I was in. Walking to class is something I completely forget. They said I was on my way to class when I had a total blackout, but I don't recall ever setting foot in that building. My left testicle had apparently ruptured in some way, and black tissue was beginning to appear. The blood and oxygen supply were being interrupted because it had twisted around each other or something. I would have either died or had to have my testicle removed if they hadn't performed emergency surgery to remove the black tissue and operate on my testicle. I don't recall being taken to the hospital or anything like that because I was totally unconscious. My recollection is that although the majority of individuals do not recall their dreams, those that do tend to be dreams that are so real and incredible that they force you to snap out of it. Something along those lines happened. If our dreams are particularly vivid and real, they may be the only ones we recall. In such cases, we may be able to piece together the moments immediately preceding our awakening. However, it gradually fades away as we go about our daily lives. Like those psychic dreams I mentioned earlier, this one lingered on for a very long period and was far more genuine. That was dwarfed by its thousandfold greater potency. On the operation table, I had a flash just before I woke up. That was the only part of that day that I can recall. My recollection of the surgery room involves essentially draping myself over my own body. As they operated on me, I found myself hanging over the operating table, staring down at my own body rather than seeing it. My arms and legs were spread out in a manner reminiscent of a woman giving birth, creating the illusion that I was actually giving birth. I hardly recognized the scene, myself, or what was happening while others worked on me. I was thinking while this was happening, and it wasn't until I realized it that I could identify it. While staring at my reflection, I thought, "Oh my God, that's me." I distinctly recall silently making a decision, but I was fully aware of it. Whether it was a visual cue or not, I clearly recall staring at my feet and thinking, I don't want to go back to that pain. It looks really bad. The pain was intense, and I certainly did not want to endure it again. At 9 years old, you don't fully grasp the consequences of your decisions, and I remember thinking, oh, I don't want to deal with that. I absolutely did not want to return to that. I can't even begin to describe the speed with which something fired me out of a cannon the second I made that decision. The only thing that comes to mind is the way Google Earth simply zooms you in as you're leaving the current location. It wasn't like I was experiencing any sort of emotional state. The pace was just too much for me. It felt natural, because ordinarily, when you sense that you're traveling at that pace, everything would simply stop working. But right now, I felt more energized and vibrant than I had in a long time. Everything was vibrant and full of life, the colors, the sound, the information it conveyed. I sprinted up the mountain at the fastest pace you can conceive. I passed across this friendly, intelligent ocean as I was departing from Earth. Like a dazzling ocean, it was verdant. Also, as I go through it, I can make out what sound like whale and bird calls. Such things. I swam across this verdant ocean of living things. The more I learned and the more time passed, the more I knew it was plasma, auroras, namely the green variety that occasionally emerge from the magnetosphere and similar phenomena. However, this intellect was alive and sentient as I passed through it. It surrounded me, gathered about me, and escorted me. For some reason, before I shot up, while I was thinking, oh, I don't want to go back to that, a comforting aura of wisdom around me in the shape of lights and orbs and the like. It lifted me up, propelled me through a precise coordinate, and it was on my north, south, east, and west. It was as if you had the GPS coordinates of paradise, and they were guiding you to a certain spot. From my vantage point on the hospital bed, I seemed to dangle precariously above the ground. I remained in this position the entire time, even as I moved forward, standing tall and almost in a crucifixion position with my legs spread wide apart, as if I were nearly scissor-armed. As I hung there, looking down at Earth, I felt just like that. And the wheel was turning. From what I could tell, the planet is not flat either. Imagine a torus. Has a torus ever crossed your path? Similar to a torus, but with a candle and an open top almost. From what I could tell, it was literally spinning in the opposite direction of the speed of light. So, as I mentioned before, it wasn't flat when I looked down. But here it was like the way I describe it, since I also do radio podcasts and radio. Since I've hosted my own radio program for quite a while, you might have heard me discuss these and related topics on the air before. My explanation for it has evolved throughout the years. I stopped discussing this event for a long time, but when I first began to describe it, it was like being on a hot summer day. On extremely hot days, you can sometimes make out what appears to be a shimmering wave in the sky, as if the air were actually water, thanks to the holographic, see-through quality of the phenomenon. So here it was there in front of my eyes. As I dangle above the surface of the planet, a cylindrical wave glistens before me. The structure resembled a tube. And it's ironic because my understanding of the cosmos and my wisdom have grown as the years have passed. I didn't know what it was, but at first I described it as something that looked like a cylinder or a transparent glass structure with water within. My best guess is that it was a place within the magnetosphere where I beheld a plasma vortex in motion. Additionally, it had a cylindrical shape. The shimmering wave appeared out of nowhere, and I dove headfirst into it as if it were tailor-made for me. My body simply followed its instinctive guidance. As I stepped into it, it felt as like my entire life, my entire existence, down to the smallest part of my identity, was being examined, evaluated, scrutinized, and scanned. Entirely, it was being. Even though I couldn't discern a single piece of information, it seemed as though the entire universe's worth of information was scanning and evaluating me. It was strange, really strange, and I felt judged, even though I was only 9 years old. Like the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead, this one depicts the pharaoh's descent into the afterlife accompanied by Anubis and the weighing of the deceased soul. That was essentially the same thing. The more I learned about the ancient Egyptians and their writings, the Book of Two Ways, the Book of Caverns, and the Book of the Dead, the more I realized that these texts describe the pharaoh or the solar king having certain experiences while traveling into celestial seas. Plus, it's not like I was very damp either. I felt like I was passing into a liquid material, yet I wasn't actually becoming wet. As previously mentioned, while I was inside it, it seemed like the universe old knowledge and information. It felt more real, powerful, vivid, and alive than this reality could ever be. Trust me when I say that. It was alive in there. Incredible, mind-blowing, electric fire-style symbols and letters and all that jazz. It was phenomenal. So I was jolted back into my body the second thing I remembered, correct. And now I am filled with an overwhelming sense of ambivalence, rage, bewilderment, and fury. I mean, a lot of things. When I regained consciousness, I wanted to know where I had gone and what had happened. People around me said things like, "No, you were dreaming or hallucinating. We just had surgery. You're fine now." I'm telling you, no amount of people can make me believe that what I went through was merely a hallucination caused by my unconsciousness. Compared to the experience, it was more genuine, alive, and sentient. Do you ever wake up from a dream that was so real that it seemed to dissolve into thin air? It was this that stuck with me and set in motion the chain reaction that has led to the fascinating and significant life I've been leading since then. Why? Because I didn't magically emerge from that situation a model citizen who began making a positive impact on the globe. I didn't figure out what woke me up within until after what felt like decades of anguish, because it's as if there were neurons and DNA in my body that were dormant before that event. Things that had been off before became active during that event, and I had no idea what they were for. I mean, it took me a long time to figure out who the fuck turned on these lights inside of me. Some of the house's lights went out, and then they came back on. I had no idea we had these rooms, and they all contained historic documents. It took me a long time to figure it out. In that case, May 2024, what's going on? In other words, do you have a clue? May is a time of rebirth for the Earth, isn't it? New life is being formed, and you can see it in the blossoms that are sprouting up. In addition, a significant eclipse occurred not long ago. The next month's worth of light that the globe receives will be contingent upon the vibrations and thoughts of every sentient life on the planet that are occurring throughout that eclipse and the spring equinox. Reason being, the solar system and its celestial bodies are sensitive to human vibrations and ideas, and the energy that leaves our planet changes the waves that return to it. You may argue that our circles are in sync with one another. Everything, including energy and data, has its beginnings in the cosmos. Additionally, all the information from the suns and stars is redirected to a particular sun. It follows that every star and sun has its own unique vibration and personality. They will all send their data to the same sun, which will then vibrate it to make it more accurate before sending it out into the universe again. A process begins with the reception of these emanations, which are subsequently modified by our own vibrations. We release them into space, and the moon picks them up, modifies them with its vibrations, and then releases them back into space. We subsequently get those and resend them. Each person and planetary system's frequency modifies these vibrational energies, creating a continuous loop in which they are harmonious with one another. Yes, a planet can change the vibration of the solar system. As a result, Earth is changing the vibration of the entire solar system, which in turn affects the cosmos. So our vibration in April will determine what happens in May, Everything will come to pass. Therefore, we can observe a marked improvement in the reflection that descends if we begin to cultivate a higher vibrational energy amongst ourselves. Everything that happens on Earth, hurricanes, storms, thunder, lightning, and so on, is brought to us by the sun, which also provides light, which is a sort of knowledge. Thus, the frequencies of our own energies determine everything. Looking ahead to May, I believe that we will experience some positive developments. Yet, I also anticipate a complete shift in the financial landscape and a radical shift in perspective. I also predict that in 2025, due to something related to solar phenomena, such as a coronal mass ejection, all technological systems will be temporarily turned off. This is actually about sunstorms and was presented to me at a megalithic site. Thus, solar prominence loops, solar flares, coronal mass ejections, and similar phenomena do occur. Coronal loops are essentially described in ancient texts. Coronal loops are similar to the ones you might see on the Egyptian Ankh or the Hindu Pasha. Could I possibly show you a book that I have on hand? Here we see a solar prominence loop, which is a longer-lasting version of a solar flare or coronal mass ejection or a solar flare itself. Coronal flares and coronal loops might form from time to time. Every piece of Egyptian solar dynasty symbolism features this Ankh. It's effectively the sun's magnetic field revolving around electrons in a spiral, isn't it? Our magnetosphere blocks most of the electrons hurled at Earth by these loops, but some of the cosmic radiation does make it in, and we experience it as auroras and other natural phenomena. However, that is all data reaching Earth, and it has the potential to render all technological systems obsolete. If it's powerful enough, it may wipe out all life on Earth by flooding it with space water, or, more accurately, cosmic radiation, and bringing darkness to the entire globe, obliterating all forms of light, natural and artificial. This is also mentioned in their predictions. A Catholic woman named Anna Maria Teji shares her experience with a prophecy regarding the 3 days of darkness. Plus, it might have something to do with solar flares. There is no higher authority in the solar system than the sun, who acts as both judge and deity. You do realize that the sun can't be avoided. The sun reveals everything. No living thing is safe from the sun's rays. The power of the sun can destroy anything it reaches. At the end of the day, the sun decides everything. So if Earth is the problem, the sun will wipe the slate clean and start over, and it will also erase any problems within the solar system. This is the evidence that we have. The sun's activity is on the rise. Things are happening to us. The Carrington event is an event that occurred in the 19th century. Our modern technological capabilities were non-existent back then. The telegraph offices were set on fire, even though we had telegraphs. It was as if they caught fire. The Carrington event describes it. It was probably around 1859 or 1879. Also, extremely severe solar storms could occur again in 2025. Also, it's mentioned in the ancient Hindu texts written in Sanskrit. That Pasha is with them. P stands for pawn. On occasion, referred to as the Varuna Pasha, you are reading about the sun goddess Varuna. The goddess Varuna rules over the solar ocean and all its waters. In light of this, how does that deity fit into solar technology? Varuna and Ganesha, in particular, are frequently depicted with several arms. In mythology, a god with many arms represents the sun's whirling vortex, with each arm representing a unique facet of the sun's personality. At all times, one of your limbs must be grasping the loop, correct? Either Ganesha or Varuna is always clutching this loop. The Pasha loop looks like this. Legend has it that it is a golden noose that ensnares spirits and carries them away to the heavenly seas. They are referring to that as the golden noose. Are you saying that this is the Hindu Pasha and the Egyptian ant? They're painting a spiritual picture, yet it's so real. A divine golden rope of fire ensnaring souls and plunging them into heavenly waters. What better way to put it? Another belief is that these pasas have the power to banish evil from earth by means of its serpents. Electricity flows like a snake when it leaves the sun and travels through plasma waves. So that's how it goes. In many ancient Egyptian depictions, the sun deity Horus is shown immediately before the serpent, which represents the path that information takes as it travels from the sun. Same as when you're in this situation, isn't it? At the foot of the sun, you'll find Anan, who lived in the late 18th dynasty. That's how the data is arriving from the sun's front, which is in the form of plasma waves. The solar power snakes its way through these waves all the way to Earth. Additionally, they depict the sun's rays lowering one of those loops to its solar king. Am I correct? In addition to creating a pathway for spirits to go, it is also connecting disparate pieces of data. The name Anan means sunlight in English, isn't it? The radiant warmth of the sun, then? That is the object of his praise. The common belief is that Anan was paying homage to the solar disk, Aten. He didn't revere the sun disk per se, but rather the light it cast. Thus, the angle of the light's descent is crucial. Because of this skewed reception, the word angel has its roots in this concept. A particular directional item with an angle, such as a geometrical angle of 60 or 45 degrees, is used in many ancient Egyptian literature, and even in Freemasonry and the Masons. They never fail to display that item, you know. It's describing the light angle that the data is falling on. Some of the great knowledge that we have here from ancient times is just astounding. Hieroglyphics in Egypt are essentially symbolic representations of Vedic mantras. Amazing, and a great deal of it is related to data transmitted by microbes from space and plasma. Much of it, what is my opinion on the fate of mankind? I fear that we are about to become something else than what we were. It is critical that we recognize the spirituality-suppressing effects of technology. Sacred megalithic sites and other earth energies allowed ancient people to tap into solar and cosmic energy, bringing them into harmony with nature and the cosmos. These days, nevertheless, we construct machines to carry out these tasks automatically, substituting the technology that we need to be employing ourselves. Instead of sitting back and letting technology do our job, we should be an integral part of it. After all, technology is already taking over, isn't it? Therefore, back when we were more, like, psychic, we lived our lives utilizing natural components and energy. Things like that are not done anymore. But now we have instant messaging, and what good is it to be spiritual if you can connect with everyone when you can just group email or instant message them all? Our identity is being eroded as a result of our reliance on a copy of technology that we ought to be utilizing. Before humans become extinct, I believe we must radically alter human nature. The world still has its good qualities, and I haven't given up hope. People fail to recognize that sometimes it just takes one individual to alter the course of events. Everything can be altered by a single event, though. Take a look at Horton Hears a Who, the one Dr. Seuss tale. Have you ever seen the one where an elephant possesses extraordinary hearing and is able to perceive an entire parallel planet filled with humans? Even though he picks up on one of their voices, everyone else is telling him, "No, those aliens don't exist. Those people don't exist," thanks to their inability to hear beyond the elephant's exceptional hearing. However, everything changes when one of those other people has the same experience as him with those folks. Simply believing in one person, even while everyone else thinks they're insane, is all that's needed. The lesson that can be imparted through things like that is that there is actual wisdom there. We can transform like a wave of DMT that sweeps across the earth. All it takes is that one spark. I believe that a tsunami of change is necessary since technology, ego, greed, and consumerism are dominating society. If you incur a loss, it becomes meaningless in the grand scheme of things. Pounds don't mean much. Why don't you just drop dead and tell me how you're feeling? What a loss if you were to lose your health, your loved ones, and your friends. The loss of self-respect is a loss of something. Money lost is still money. Nowadays, people are more concerned about losing money than they are about losing friends, connections, or health. Assuming they're profitable, they couldn't care less about anything. Money has surpassed family as the most essential thing, and that is the problem.